Welcome to another episode of The One Thing Guy. Yep, that's me, Stuart. And today I want to talk about something that, well, for most of us, we actually believe that we always need more time. I know I need it. I always want more time, but we've only got 24 hours in the day. But what we really actually need is a better structured day, a day that is more in control from us than being in control from the outside world. So, that weekly execution plan is what I'm going to be talking about today. It is a simple tool that I've shared in the past. It's a simple tool that will turn, well, let's call it good intentions into consistent results. So that's what we're going to talk about in this particular session. And it is something that we all struggle with. And it's time. It just seems to flow so quickly that when you lift your head up, you're suddenly going, well, where did this time go? And the reflection shows us, well, have we just been busy or have we actually done what's needed to be done to get us closer to having extraordinary results? So, a question that I wanted to start the session with is, are you currently managing your priorities or are you reacting to whatever appears next? So, are you currently managing your priorities or are you reacting to whatever appears next? Now, I want to say this in truth and honesty. I run a structured life, but yes, there are times where suddenly I go into, well, we call it reacting mode, where you suddenly see an email pops up and that email leads to a message. That message leads to going and doing a bit of searching somewhere about some information. And then it's back to that particular email. And then that circle goes around. And before you blink, 2, 3, 4 hours has gone past. And then you go and look at those particular priorities that you wanted to. In fact, you didn't want to, you needed to have completed. And they're still sitting there. You haven't started them. You haven't even made a dent in them. And then you look at it and go, where did all this time go? What have I been doing? I know I'm busy. I know I'm exhausted. But where has this time gone? Surely the work that I've been doing throughout the day is actually productive. Well, is it really? So that's what we want to go through. And the 411 tool that we've shared, and it's a tool that comes from the one thing, is an amazing tool. It's almost a one-page document. And we always suggest have it as a paper copy. Why? Well, you don't have to rely on making sure that your device is charged or it's still in your bag. A piece of paper you can fold up and put in your pockets. You can have it in your laptop when you open it. You can have it anywhere. So we always recommend, and it's suggested, but recommended to have it in a paper version. And if you want more information about that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Go to my website, stuarthyslop.com. That's StuartHyslop.com. That sounded almost like a song, but you can go through to my website and I will be able to share information with you. You can actually schedule a free session and to help you to actually work through this particular document. So, when we look at a key principle from the one thing, which is the book, The One Thing, extraordinary results, they actually come from protecting our high leveraged activities and eliminating those low value items and work activities. We need to make sure that we highlight the important ones and we protect it. That's what is so important through this journey. I know that when I've worked with clients around the world, the big thing is the distractions that come into their office, onto their desk, that's all these low value work items. They seem important. They really seem so much of a priority that they have to be done. But the truth of it is, It's actually preventing them from moving their companies forward. So when we start to identify those key priorities and protect it, suddenly everything changes. Now, I want to share with you 3 takeaway tips. These are very, very simple tips. It's tips that you've probably heard about already, but I'm going to share with you 3 tips that can help you in your particular business, whether it's professional or personal. And here's the great thing, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're writing a book, if you're playing a sports game, doesn't matter what industry you're in, the same tips and principles actually can be applied to yourself, which makes this so powerful because it's also something that's very easy. And, well, I'm going to share it with you now. So, the first tip is, well, you've created these weekly planners and it's full of to do list items. We always have all of that. But there is a small little principle that, well, it gets sold so many times. In fact, there's even a book written with the same title. And you apply what we refer to as the 80-20 principle. Now, what is the 80-20 principle? What exactly does that actually do for you? Well, what the 80-20 principle does is it helps you to identify what we refer to as the big rocks. That's the 20%. These are these big activities, these major priorities that when you actually complete just them, they actually give you 80% of your results. Now, it is based on Pareto's principle, and you can actually search that and understand that a little bit deeper. But I've looked into it when I first heard about it and thought, 80-20, really? But the truth is, it's all around you. You can see the evidence. 20% of your activities comes from, well, no, not 20% of your activities. The 20% of activities that you do gives you the 80% of the results. Almost got myself tongue twisted there for a second. But the 80-20 rule is so important. So, how do we apply that into our week? Well, it's very straightforward. We have weekly activities. You can open up your calendar and actually have a look to see what has been scheduled. And all you need to do is identify those particular activities, those priorities that are already in your calendar that's going to give you the maximum results. But then on the other side is to identify those activities that don't give you any results. In fact, they could be deleted, maybe they could even be delegated, or maybe they could even be delayed. You could take that particular activity and move it out so that you can put more time and energy and focus into those 20 percenters, those ones that's going to give you the 80% results. So, the very first tip out of the gate is look for the 20%, those big rocks, those priorities that give you the maximum results. But here's the kicker, when you identify them, don't set them for a late afternoon on a Friday once you're tired and exhausted. Front load your week, front load your day. Get onto them first. Front load your week, put them on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Front load your day, start them early in the morning when your energy is at the highest. It makes total sense. You come in, you're more focused, you have more energy, which means you can actually knock out that priority in a much easier way with clarity. And that's how we start to move forward. So, the first tip is starting to identify the big rocks and make sure that they are prioritized in your week. Front load your week, front load your day. Just remember that little term. That's the first tip that I want to share with you. The second tip is it's actually about creating discipline. Now, I said to you, the 411 works best when it's on a piece of paper. Something that is printable, something that you can handwrite. And yes, I know we're going back in time. Stuart, we've got technology here. Can't we just use technology? Well, yes, you can. But technology also has an on and off button where a piece of paper, well, you can't turn it off because it's there. Can you lose it? Of course you can. But you need to make sure that it's with you all the time. So, what we do is we create this discipline to actually look at it every single day, every morning. The very first thing that you do before you open your laptop, before you even decide to go into any of the activities of the day, is have a look at that 411. When you look at that 411, and for those of you that are going, okay, Stuart, just tell me a little bit about it. 411 is in 3 sections. Section 1 is the goal that you're wanting to achieve. That is long term, whether it's in 90 days, whether it's in a year. Section 2 is the milestone that you want to hit at the end of this month. And section 3, the one at the bottom, is the daily activities that you're going to do each and every week. Now, why is it called 411? Well, there's one goal, there's one milestone, but there is 4 weeks in a particular month. So you'll find at the end of the week, you could be replacing that weekly at the bottom. So that's just the side note. So coming back on, set it as a disciplined execution every single morning to just look at that 411. You will see and highlight those activities that needs to be done in the week. You will also see the milestone that you're heading towards for the end of the month. When all this information remains top of mind, well, you then know when you're doing an activity, you're going to feel it in your gut. Is this the right activity? Or am I actually going down a bit of a rabbit hole and I'm in a different direction? That's the big thing. So you want to look at that every single morning because what it does, it starts to help you to focus on that alignment of what is that goal? What is that milestone? What is that activity that I'm doing right now? You'll start to focus on that and it starts to become ingrained inside of you. You're actually going to start to see that on a Wednesday, you've taken an appointment, you're doing an activity, and you're going to feel, I'm heading in the wrong direction. You'll know it. You'll know that you're kind of pivoting away from that milestone and goal. You'll have that gut instinct to go, wait a minute, let me just take a breather. Let me pause. Let me just realign myself and get back on track. You see, when we do go off course, we go so far off course that we forget about everything. So when we have that discipline, every morning when you open up your laptop before you get into work, just have a look at your 411. Read that goal that you're wanting to achieve. Make sure it's top of mind. Look at that milestone. Am I on track to actually hitting that? And then look at those weekly activities to make sure that there's their alignment to achieve that particular monthly goal or monthly milestone. And if you're not, you correct it. And it puts it top of mind. When someone says to you, what are you going to do today? Well, you already know because that information has also been put into your calendar. And when you look at your calendar, there's a synergy. That's where the technology comes into it. It's just to give you those reminders and a bit more detail. But those big rocks, you've got to be reminded about those priorities each and every morning. It will become a habit and it will become so strong and ingrained in you that you will actually start to feel this movement going forward. So that's the second tip. This is that creating that discipline to look at your 411 every single morning. Now, the third, and I really had to extract this from tip number 1. Tip number 1 being that 80-20 principle. And I told you, front load your week, front load your day. But tip number 3, when I looked at this, I actually suddenly underlined the importance of tip number 3. Tip number 3, start and finish those big rocks first. When you can identify that major priority for the week, there's always one of them. And the easiest way to identify which it is is you just ask yourself the question, if I could only do one of these priorities this week, which one would it be? If I could only do one, I'm only allowed, it's a law in the world, you're only allowed doing one a week. If that's the case, that becomes your big rock. That becomes the 20%. That becomes the priority. And I had to extract this a little bit deeper for tip number 3. Identify it, start it first. Make sure that is done Monday morning. Get onto it and start working through it. As soon as you get into it, momentum starts immediately. As soon as you've completed it, you actually feel the results coming so much quicker. Way too often, when I've spoken to clients, they look at those big rocks and they think, oh, there's a lot of work that I've got to do. I'm not ready for it yet. I'm going to prepare for it. So they prepare on Monday, then they prepare on Tuesday, then they prepare on Wednesday. And then by Thursday, they say, well, I'm too tired to even start it. And it just keeps on getting shifted and shifted and shifted. And all that's doing is delaying the success of achieving those extraordinary results. And that's why I wanted to highlight tip 3 by extracting that little 20% and saying, tip 3 is make sure that that big rock, that priority is actually scheduled first. Get onto it like now. Make sure that it is achieved and completed before anything else. Start it early in the week. Front load your week with your big rock. Front load your big rock early in the day. Make sure that you're actually doing that. Because when you do that, ultimately what happens is you kind of get over the biggest hurdle. And then everything else, guess what? Becomes easier or unnecessary. You will find that that big rock, that big priority, actually has a knock-on effect to so many other areas of your business or of your personal life. So those are the 3 priorities that I really want you to embrace and start working with. The first one, it's applying that 80-20 principle, that 80-20 rule to your weekly planner, and really remove the stuff that is not getting you closer and really highlight the ones that get you moving forward. Remember, 20% of your activities gives you 80% of your results. So why work harder? Work smarter. You've heard that before. The second tip is make sure that you create the discipline and habit of looking at your 411 each and every morning. That's why we do it as a paper one. Just look at it every morning, top to bottom, and it's going to take you probably 15 seconds to actually do. And then the third one, and this one here is so important, identify that big rock, that 20%, that priority, and do it first. Make sure it's in your calendar. Make sure it actually is so well protected that you can put all of your time, your energy, your focus into getting it complete. Why? Because once you completed it, you're going to be moving so much closer to achieving that particular extraordinary result, those goals, those milestones for the actual month. So those are my 3 tips that I wanted to share with you today, because time management, well, we don't need more time. We actually need better structure. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, is something that you can implement to give you better structure. Now, again, if you are looking for help around this, just go to my website, stuarthyslop.com. And what you'll actually find is there's an option to book a clarity call with me. It's free, it's for 30 minutes. And that will actually help you to go through this in a lot deeper ways. The 411 tool, simple piece of paper, is one that is used over and over again with all my clients, and it helps you to achieve that extraordinary results. A quote that I want to end with, which I thought was so appropriate: what gets scheduled gets done. So make sure that you identify and you actually schedule it into your particular calendar. So from today's session, Pick one thing that I've done, put it into your calendar and do it. Because remember, learning, it's going to create the awareness, which is great. Give it 2 thumbs up. But it's the actions that's going to create those results. So for my next episode, I look forward to seeing you then. So you stay well, put it into your calendar, make sure it's scheduled, and you can live a life by design by achieving those extraordinary results. Cheers for now.